Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, Susan Bittersmith resigns from the Arizona Corporation Commission, and a state board of education official resigns over errors in teacher misconduct records. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital Times, and Luigi Del Puerto, also from the Arizona Capital Times. Susan Bittersmith resigns from the Arizona Corporation Commission, her resignation effective January 4th. Was this a surprise?
I think ultimately not her resignation, but the timing, because she announced her resignation the day after her attorney had filed a response to the Attorney General's brief seeking the Supreme Court to remove her from that office. And so, up until the day before this, she was fighting. Yeah,
she was fighting, obviously under pressure. Give us a quick overview of all the problems that she was dealing with.
Well, there's a number. I guess we'll start with the ones that got her, led to her resignation. She was the lobbyist for a cable television industry group. A lot of that salary was paid for by Cox Communications, which is regulated not on the cable TV side, but regulated by the Corporation Commission. They have telecommunications stuff that Bittersmith's commission regulated. People felt like that was a conflict of interest that violated state law, because there's some very specific laws that apply to the Corporation Commission. It's a quasi-judicial body. Attorney General Brnovich very much agreed. He filed some papers with the Supreme Court saying, we want you to boot her out of office.
And again, the attorney filed the day before she resigned. That seems, what's going on there?
Well, yeah, that really was a puzzle, and that's why the timing, as Mary Jo had mentioned, really was a surprise. I think a couple weeks ago, at the moment that the Attorney General said, I'm going to go after you, I'm going to seek your removal from office, there was this sentiment that at some point she was going to be forced out of the Corporation Commission. But the fact that her lawyer had filed this very lengthy response to the Attorney General's filing, at that point showed that maybe she was in this for the long haul. And of course, the very next day, Rachel, one of our reporters, went there, had no idea, we had no inkling, and we were quite blindsided by her resignation that day.
But there was pressure on her. Within hours, I think, after Attorney General Brnovich filed his petition, I forget what the formal name of it is called, the Republican Party chairman, Robert Graham, was suggesting that, that Ms. Bittersmith take a look at her options here and think about the good of the party and think about the good of the commission. So, there was some pressure on her to just let's get this cleaned up and get it behind us.
One interesting thing about filing, her response to Brnovich the day before she resigned is when she resigned, she said, well, I think this case should still go forward, basically saying, we'll let the facts play out, let the public see an exoneration for Susan Bittersmith. And Brnovich basically said, as I think Joe Biden would say, that's a bunch of stuff that, she knows, full and well that the case is almost certainly not going to go forward now. It's going to get dropped because the entire purpose of it was to force her out of office.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting for her to say that she still wants the case to go forward. Well, that's fine, but there's no case anymore.
Right. In order to have a dispute, you need two parties to be, fighting each other. In this case, she's already giving up, and therefore there's no dispute. In fact, Attorney General Mark Brnovich said today that on December 23rd, they will be filing a motion to the Supreme Court, basically saying we are withdrawing our petition seeking her removal, conditioned upon her actually resigning from office.
I was going to say conditioned upon her actually going ahead and doing this.
I think one thing that this will do is, this has been known. Bittersmith's been a lobbyist for the telecommunications, for the Cable TV Association for a long, long time. And hopefully this will lead to more scrutiny of candidates when they run for office. She was in her third year in office.
I was going to say, is this... Will people start paying more attention to I know that in the past people went to the Corporation Commission almost as a way to kind of get out of the limelight a little bit and do some busy work and wonkish work, but goodness gracious, someone's got to start paying attention, don't they?
Well, people are paying attention now. I think I've said on this show before that we used to go years without talking about the Corporation Commission. Now it's a week. There's so much scrutiny because of the APS solar fights, because of all the dark money that's flooded into these campaigns. There's so many eyes on this now, including this group, the Checks and Balances Project, which we recently recently learned is at least largely funded by one of the largest solar companies in the country. You know, there's so many eyes on it, and they're the ones who initially brought this information forward, information that's really been known for a while, but they really publicized it, got it out there.
And the public really should be paying attention to the Corporation Commission, because this entity is so important. The things that they regulate directly affect our wallets. You know, they regulate telephone services, they regulate the securities, they regulate you know, electricity, and whatever they decide could mean you'll have more money for the month or less money for the month. So people should pay attention to the Corporation Commission, and I think that's starting to happen.
You mentioned she resigned. A lot of pressure there for her to resign, a lot of a push from the Republicans especially. Was anyone in her corner? Was anyone saying, you stay out there and you fight this? We're backing you?
I'm not aware.
Bob Stump probably. He was, you know, showed a lot of support for her throughout this. You know, when she resigned, you know, put out a statement, or at least on Facebook, at least, you know, expressing his support for her. So he's got at least one champion, or she's got at least one champion.
Yeah,
in her
but
corner.
you need more than one, don't you?
Yeah, no, you really need people to rally around you and say, you know, this is politically motivated, there's no basis for it, and we haven't really seen that kind of support for her.
So, who will the governor put in there to fill out the rest of the term? And I would imagine go ahead and run again. Perhaps, I don't know.
I guess, you know, that really is the question right now. Who will the governor appoint to replace her? You know, we talked to several sources in the Capitol community, and a couple names had been floated. One of them is Andy Tobin, you know, an agency director. Another is Ted Vogt, who used to work for the governor as well. Folks like Frank Griggs, people who had been interested in running for the Corporation Commission, or as I'd mentioned earlier, you know, a few other familiar faces, if you will. Another is Al Melvin, and in fact, Al Melvin told us today that he is quite interested in getting the appointment, and he thinks he's the best person for the job.
And doesn't Andy Tobin have enough to do?
Yes, in fact, just this week, the governor announced that he's giving him a dual appointment. So not only does Tobin head up the state insurance department, now he's going to at least temporarily take over direction for the State Department of Financial Institutions. I think there's some speculation that this might lead to a merger of these two agencies, just as when he was appointed head of Weights and Measures, that ultimately got sort of broken into component parts and sent out to other agencies.
And of course, I should mention, these are just names being floated. These are
Sure.
pure speculation at this
Sure.
point. However, you know, one source told me that the question to ask is not who the governor will appoint, but rather, what does the governor want to accomplish in this appointment? Does he want to, you know, put somebody in there that would contribute to a little bit more stability into what seems like a very chaotic, you know, place at this point? Or does the governor want to appoint someone who would be continuing the job, which means, you know, appoint someone who would be electable to a statewide office, and therefore somebody who will be running next year?
Well, I think there might be some pressure on the governor to appoint a placeholder, someone who won't fill that out. You know, one of the only people who's filed to run for this so far is Rick Gray, a legislator from the West Valley. Now, a sitting legislator, of course, cannot be appointed to this, so some folks might want him to ensure that we'll have 2 open seats there. You'll have 3 of these seats up for election next year. 2 of them will be open now.
And the governor does have a vast network of people outside the Capitol. Remember, he's a businessman, and so therefore he could tap, you know, this business network, if you will, and get somebody completely outside of the Capitol community.
Sure, but perhaps one of the biggest questions would be, where is this appointee going to fall in this long-running APS versus solar fight, which is really the genesis of how all of this came about. And of course, Governor Ducey has some ties to folks who are pretty close to APS. His chief of staff, Kirk Adams, is a longtime friend and consultant, Sean Noble. So I think there's a lot of speculation that he'll appoint someone who's more favorable to the APS side.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Board of Education, chief investigator for teacher misconduct. We've talked in the past now that those records didn't quite all go where they were supposed to. He resigns after, 10 years in the office, something like that?
Yes, and you know, some time after this revelation was made, and submitted his resignation to the Board of Education. That's who supervises him, and off he goes. And now we have, I don't know if this is going to open up the door for further dispute between the Board of Education and School Superintendent Diane Douglas, but somebody's got to fill that role and make sure that, you know, that background investigations of teachers and other administrators is done properly and conveyed, which was the problem. A lot of this was not forwarded on so that it could be useful in the hiring
So
process.
again, this were like 79 some odd cases of, and we're talking everything from drunk on the job to sexual problems, all sorts of things with between teachers and some of these folks are still in the database, or were still in the database.
Yeah, no. Superintendent Douglas says none of those folks have been hired, so we've at least avoided that. And you mentioned further conflict. It sounds like this is already kind of a source of new conflict for Douglas and the board, because she has this long-running fight over who has control over these employees, and she says, "Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why I should have control over the board and its employees. I would run this better, but this won't happen anymore." Of course, this all predates her tenure, though.
So what happened essentially is that this information. So it's the investigators aren't exactly the ones investigating these teachers. They are being investigated by local law enforcement, for example. Some of them have presumably are already in jail. But what happened is that the investigators had, or the Board of Education had failed to put that information into the state and federal database, which means that when you look up this teacher who could be in jail right now, his certificate would still be valid. And of course, the Department of Education said none of them had been hired, which is a very good thing. Jeremy is exactly right. Diane Douglas is showing this and saying, look, I should be the one doing this thing. I should be the one running this thing. I could do a better job. I could be more efficient.
Will this now, again, it seems like every time we talk about Diane Douglas and the rift with the Board of Education, we say, is this going to lead the legislature to finally put some clarification into some lines of demarcation?
Well, haven't heard much talk about that, and we've lost the chairman of the Senate Education Committee. Speaking of resignations, this week Senator Kelly Ward's resignation from the state Senate took effect as she goes off to give all her attention to running against John McCain for the GOP nomination for U.S. Senate. So I haven't seen anything delineating Board of Ed versus school superintendent duties in some of the early bills that have been filed already, but we got another month.
And there is some interest on getting this thing clarified. I mean, if the legislators really want to make sure that, to a certain extent, the technical side of it is resolved, they should pass a law that defines very clearly where the powers of the two entities are.
And they had that bill last year, and it looked like it was kind of cruising to passage. Then everything fell apart. I get the feeling that people are going to give a little more attention to that this upcoming session, given everything that's happened since that bill collapsed.
We're going to get to Kelly Ward again in a second here, because there's a kind of an adjunct story. But in our conflict resignation kind of theme, no resignation here, but the Department of Child Safety rebuked by lawmakers, JLBC. What was going on here?
Now, this is about someone whose resignation some folks at the Capitol would certainly like to see. Greg McKay, the director of the Department of Child Safety, they had a JLBC hearing the other day, Joint Legislative Budget Committee. The department was supposed to submit a report that was about 2.5 months late. Director McKay did not show up on his own to report this. It had some, kind of predictably bad news for DCS, as we've been seeing a lot this year, and the committee just excoriated him, and ultimately what they passed, a bipartisan motion that was actually introduced by a Democrat, by Steve Farley. That's how angry some of the Republicans over there are, that is basically a vote of no confidence, and it's non-binding, doesn't really mean anything, but it really shows how much anger and frustration there is over there with how this agency has been running.
And this was a regularly scheduled kind of review to see how certain departments are doing, and this DCS was up now. And why didn't he show up for this?
Well, his spokesperson says that he had notified JLBC staff. I'm a little unclear if it was staff or the lawmakers themselves, that he would not be there. But certainly co-chairman Justin Olson was very surprised that the director wasn't there, and said, look, they usually show up for these things. I mean, this was quarterly benchmarks, and to understand this, I mean, some of it might after a while become really pro forma, but DCS is new, and just 18 months ago, they had this special session and all this concentrated attention. We're going to make this new agency. We're going to right the ship. We're going to, protect the kids and do right by the kids in Arizona. And the numbers, the trend lines that we know right now are still, the backlog's bigger from what they reported. The caseworker numbers are down.
Yes. And
we're at 19,000 plus children living out of their homes. So they're not going in the right direction. And plus, lawmakers put a lot of money, extra money into this, and we're aghast to learn that the computer system, which is sort of the heart of how to make this all work, the upgrade to that won't be done probably until 2018, I think.
And that really goes to the heart of the frustration of lawmakers, because as Mary Jo had mentioned, the state is spending a whole lot of money. This is supposed to be the salvation of the kids. It is supposed to be the one entity that, since it is new, it's a new mandate, it's a start, it's a fresh start, if you will, that some things would be righted. In fact, what we're saying is that just because you created new bureaucracy doesn't mean that you're solving the problem you're meant to solve. And really, is the problem is that, I mean, there are, it's a very complicated situation, but the problem is that there are so many kids that are, there are so many cases of neglect and abuse, and there are not a whole lot of caseworkers, and those caseworkers are very overburdened. That is one of the biggest problems that they face.
All right.
Remember that child safety is also going to be asking for a lot more money in this upcoming session.
Well, I hope
for
he
next
shows
year's
up
budget.
when he's going to show up for that one, the particular effort.
He may, but I don't know how willing some of these legislators are going to be to give over some of this new money based on what we've been hearing from them recently.
And to put this in context, I mean, there was a JLBC meeting back in October that Director McKay did attend, and that one didn't go very well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
here lawmakers convene again. It's more bad news. I mean, it's just the tension was palpable.
You had mentioned earlier that Kelly Ward was leaving the legislature to focus on her race against Senator John McCain. Will she be focusing her race on someone else as well?
It's possible. For months we've been hearing rumors about whether or not Congressman David Schweikert is going to, get into this race. We heard the same about Matt Salmon for a while. He ruled himself out. Schweikert seemed like he did that earlier this year. The rumors have been bubbling back up. I'm hearing from some of my sources that he's kind of getting closer to this, maybe even leaning towards it, talking to, folks in D.C. who might be able to help him raise some money. And Schweikert is the candidate that a lot of the conservatives, the Tea Party folks, this is who they want. This is who they've always wanted. Ward, she's out there, she's got the support of these folks, but most people, a lot of folks aren't really viewing her as a serious threat to McCain. They want Schweikert, but what Ward's saying now is if he gets in, she's past the point of no return. She's already resigned her seat. He had 2 weeks advance notice. She's not going to get out if that happens. So it'll be a three-way race.
And that really is the question for Kelly Ward. Do you keep fighting and split the vote and let John McCain win, or make it easier for him to win? Or do you sacrifice yourself and say, for the conservative cause, I'm stepping aside and letting somebody like David Schweikert, with bigger name, presumably someone who could raise more money, and you let him do the fighting on behalf of the conservatives?
Aren't you getting a little ahead of yourself? I mean, I think it was not. I think Schweikert's wife ruled him out for running for the seat. As I reviewed past stories, and the couple just adopted a child. They now have an infant.
Right. Well, what we're hearing is that one of the reasons why Schweikert was reluctant, presumably reluctant, we don't really know, presumably reluctant to get into the race is because they were going through that adoption process. And what we're hearing from sources is that now that process has been completed, and presumably he's free to do what he wants.
And be an absentee dad.
He's going to.
But he won't be running for election every 2 years. He'll have, things will be more stable. And this might be kind of pushing him towards that
things could be very stable if you decide to run against John McCain. I mean, you don't have to go leave home at all. I mean, why is he even considering this?
Well, McCain is viewed as vulnerable. If you look at the polling, he's such a big name, but you look at the polling and, his approval ratings, they're down. A lot of people feel like he's vulnerable. If only the right candidate could come along. Schweikert might be that guy.
And David Schweikert would be the right candidate?
Well, a lot of conservatives here and nationally are saying if David Schweikert decides to run, he would be the best candidate to take on John McCain. And, just because there are young families, young couples who are in the legislature or in Congress, and Ron Paul, the same issue when he was being courted to run for speaker. But the thing is that you could run and still have a newly adopted baby.
Oh, okay.
No, true. But and I think the reason that there is discontent in conservative quarters with McCain, and people want a candidate who they think has a good chance of taking him out. And Schweikert, as these guys have said, is seen as having that potential.
Right, and I meant to say Paul Ryan, not Ron Paul.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
wow.
I was going, wow, who knew? Speaking of candidates, you-know-who stopped at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport today in his own jet, spoke to thousands of, I think, cold but enthusiastic. Donald Trump is not going away.
No, he's not. It was right after the debate, and the debates aren't really where he shines. Where he shines is at these rallies, just like this one. About 3,100 people attended, about 7,000 according to his campaign. But it was Trump in all his glory in his own private plane, with music from the movie Air Force One plane as he stepped off of the plane. And it was mostly the same things that we've been hearing from Trump, for 6 months since he got into the race. He's going to build a wall. It's going to be as tall as the hangar. Mexico's going to pay for it. We're going to name it after me, all this stuff. And, his momentum, despite, notwithstanding the polls in Iowa that have Cruz kind of, pulling ahead of him, his momentum still doesn't really seem to be going anywhere.
Introduced by Joe Arpaio. As far as the Republican, I mean, we keep reading that the national Republican establishment can't wait to find someone to move Trump off the stage. Is it the same way in Arizona, or is the Arizona Republican Party pretty happy with them? I saw Joe Arpaio and I think Treasurer Jeff DeWitt. I think Kelly Ward was there as well. I didn't see anybody else.
We were asking Treasurer DeWitt, sent him a message, and I think one of my colleagues also tried to get a hold of him. Like, are you a supporter of Donald Trump? And presumably, since he was there and he was also at the debate, the CNN debate the other day, presumably he is, but we don't really know. To answer your question, I think it's the same here as it is nationally. I think our establishment Republicans are very fearful of Donald Trump, and they think that if Donald Trump wins the nomination, which, if the trend holds, he will, then, it's going to be the end of the party's bid for the White House, because people are saying there's no way he can beat Hillary Clinton. But there are a huge chunk of Republicans in the state. They're very happy with Donald Trump, that they think that he is expressing, the anxieties, the views, the very heart of, what people are feeling right now, and and expresses them very well.
But I think there's been a shift with some of the establishment Republicans, because when Trump came here back in July, I think we had Governor Ducey, and I can't remember the chairman of the party, if he stayed silent or not, and our two senators, saying bad news, not a good idea. They were not supportive of Trump. This time around, governors just didn't have anything to say, and McCain and Flake spoke and said, "Yeah, this is not our candidate." So there's some hesitance now to go after Trump. I mean, he's maintained this lead for months.
I was going to say, if you did go after Trump at this late stage, so to speak, I mean, you have to kind of wonder if it's a wise political thing to do anymore, because he does seem to have rallied in the Republican Party a pretty strong base.
Sure, if you go after Trump, Trump's going to go after you. I mean, we saw the huge spat that he and John McCain got in earlier this year. Remember, 100 years ago, when we said, "Oh, that's going to end his campaign," and obviously it hasn't. He loves picking fights with people. It seems like he loves getting criticized, because then he gets to fire back, which he's very good at.
All right, before we go, I don't know if this is such a political story, but as someone who has frequented Four Peaks Brewery and just loves the food there, I heard they serve beer there as well, but I love the food. Anyway, sold to Anheuser-Busch, and it was kind of sad, because it was a homegrown, mom-and-pop, Arizona-based and now it's part of the biggest, beer brewer in the world. The governor comes out and says this is, what did he call it? A truly an Arizona success story and the American dream in action. Is there a little bit of a tin ear there? Because I don't hear from anyone who thinks this is a good thing for Arizona.
I think he might be speaking as a businessman. I think his description of success is that if you build a company and it reaches a certain point where it gets the attention of, in this case, the biggest brewery in the world, if it gets the attention of something as big as that, then therefore it is a success story. But I tell you what, this news has shocked the Capitol community, and there are a lot of people that are not happy about it. At least those that we're hearing today, they're not happy about it, because this is supposed to be, the idea of a craft brewery is that it's supposed to be independent, it's supposed to be small, it's supposed to be able to pay more attention. I mean, that's why they're there, because they're paying more attention to details. But
it's Arizona. I mean, it's like America West. It's like everything we start here just gets swallowed up, and we can't be a base for anything. We're just kind of like the corner office.
Which tends to happen when folks get pretty successful. And going back to your comment on Ducey's statement, I think he sees a lot of himself in this. I mean, he started off running a small chain of ice cream stores in the Valley, just a few stores, and that turned into this massive international chain. And then he did the same. He sold it to a larger company and cashed out.
Yeah, I think it also is though, has raised questions. I mean, we had the beer bill this last session that everybody thought was going to be the big fight. It wasn't so much a big fight, and it was designed to allow some of these smaller brewers to still produce and not hit certain production caps. That all got reconfigured, and the main beneficiary of that is now, you know, gone to the other side, to the big corporate side.
To the dark side.
And
They
well,
held the
Heck,
bill
it-
signing ceremony at 4P because it was quite an event.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, all right. I guess that's it. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening and a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.